What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Mr. Jackson. Let us go.
Dwayne Wade reached the end of his NBA career back in 2020. He had faded from the spotlight during the previous few years, bouncing from team to team, averaging about 11 points a game towards the end, which isn't great in the NBA for his position, just so you know. When he finally hobbled into retirement, he faced the terrifying prospect of irrelevance. And it was at this exact moment when, conveniently, his 12-year-old son came out as transgender. It's a very similar situation to like when Colin Kaepernick was right at the moment he got benched, he decided to become a social justice advocate. And for Dwayne Wade, right at the moment when he washed out of the NBA, he decided that he was going to do the same. Couldn't have planned it any better, really. The moment his NBA career ended, he was able to make the jump into the very profitable business of social justice activism. In fact, his supposedly trans son, who he now calls his daughter, brought him more attention and generated more headlines than he was ever able to achieve on his own, even during his prime playing days. So here's Wade, just to reminisce for a moment. Here's Wade back in 2020, announcing his son's new identity to the world on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
So once Zaya, 12-year-old, came home, and first Zion, everybody, I don't know if everyone knows, originally named Zion born as a boy, came home and said, hey, so I want to talk to you guys. I think going forward, I'm ready to live my truth. And I want to be referenced as she and her. I would love for you guys to call me Zaya. And so internally, now it's our job to, one, go out and get information, to reach out to every relationship that we have. My wife reached out to everybody on the cast of Pose. We're just trying to figure out as much information we can to make sure that we give our child the best opportunity to be, her best self.
That's his job as a parent, he says. His son comes home one day, announces that he's really a girl, and his job as a father, he claims, is to immediately accept this statement as fact, ask no follow-up questions, and follow the lead of the child blindly and without a hint of skepticism. Not only that, but the father's next task is to apparently go on national television and announce his 12-year-old's gender identity to the entire world. This is an important part of the affirmation process, you see. Not only do you unquestioningly affirm whatever he says, but you also have to put it on a billboard for the whole world to see. So that this identity that your child just adopted 5 seconds ago will now be set in stone, cemented in place. From this point, Wade would go on to become a prominent advocate of trans rights, and everywhere he went, he would be greeted with applause and adulation. He was just a washed-up NBA player before. He was facing a life as an ESPN commentator, which is a lowly fate that anyone would be desperate to avoid. But now, with his trans child, he found himself accepted, celebrated, beloved in the upper echelons of society in Hollywood. Here he is on the red carpet earlier this year.
I just have to thank you because you've been amazing with your daughter. It's pretty incredible. What keeps you going, fighting for her?
Just being a father and just seeing our child grow up every day and doing what you're supposed to do as a parent is to make sure that you sit back and, you see what it is in life that they want to do and you try to go there with them and try to help them mold them into what it is they want to be and who they want to be. So we're just doing our part, as parents. And we love our kids and we get to see them every day. That's what people on the outside don't get to see, but we know them and we see them all the time. So.
Yeah, and we believe them when they tell us who they are.
What do you say to a dad out there whose daughter has just come home and said, I'm trans? What do you say to that dad?
Well, I say the moment when you were in the hospital and you grabbed your daughter and you looked at your daughter and all the things that went through your mind, all the emotions that went through your mind and how much love filled your heart at that moment. Don't let that ever leave you, no matter what. Like, the one thing as parents, what we do is we find our mini-me's and we try to make them just like us. We just understand, like, our kids are going to be who they are. It's our job to help mold them and help try to, push them in the right places that they want to go. But just remember that moment, what you said in that hospital that day they were born.
Yes, Dwayne, remember that moment in the hospital when your son was born. Your son. The doctor identified him by his sex, All human beings are identified this way. And that's who he was, and that's who he still is. So remember that moment. Take your own advice. At least that part of your advice. The rest of it is nonsense. He says that the job of a father is to, and I quote, sit back and see what they want to do and go there with them. Now, I'm not exaggerating when I say that this is the worst parenting advice I have ever heard in my entire life. It is quite literally the opposite of parenting. You know, a great way to parent would be to listen to what Dwayne Wade is saying and just adopt the opposite approach. Just do the reverse of whatever the hell he is babbling about. Because if I parented the way that he proposes, all of my kids would be dead right now. None of them would have made it past the age of 2 if I sat back and went wherever they wanted to go and did whatever they want to do. If that's how you're going to parent, then you aren't needed. You might as well just abandon your kids in a forest somewhere. Let them fend for themselves. Maybe they'll be adopted by a friendly pack of wolves. Honestly, Dwayne Wade's kids would have been better off raised by wolves than raised by him. You know, an actual parent, a real parent, is there to offer guidance and wisdom and insight and direction and correction. That's the job of a parent. That is what you are there for. And if your son comes up to you one day and reveals that he's confused about his identity, he is in desperate need of guidance and wisdom and insight and direction and correction. But he wasn't given what he was needed. Instead, his confusion was affirmed and then exploited. And that's certainly the case that the boy's mother, Wade's ex-wife, is making now in court filings from the Post-Millennial. This was breaking news yesterday. It says, Wade's ex claims that Wade has been exploiting Zaya, who, quote, came out as transgender at the age of 12. Siobhan Funches Wade has now filed paperwork to ask a judge to hold off on the legal name change, saying that Zaya's modeling contracts and influencer deals are Wade's impetus for forging ahead with the gender transition. In the legal filing, Funches Wade states, quote, I have concerns that Dwayne may be pressuring our child to move forward with the name and gender change in order to capitalize on the financial opportunities that he has received from companies. Wade, who has had full custody since 2011 when the divorce with Funches Wade went through, said in August when petitioning for the name change that the child's mother was only informed as a courtesy. Funches Wade fought for 4 years to retain custody of the children. She wants Zaya to wait until the age of 18 before making this change. She is the child of both Wade's oldest children and is concerned that Zaya is being pressured into the changes by the elder Wade, who is, quote, poised to profit from Zaya's deals and sex change. To back up her claims, Funches Wade said that she had a conversation with Wade in April, during which he explained the extent of the financial benefits of Zaya's sex change. She said, quote, he told me that he intended to make our child very famous due to the name and gender issue, and also informed me that there would be endorsements and contracts associated therewith. I am concerned, she went on, that our child is being commercialized at a young age and also is of the uncontrollable consequences of media exposure, i.e. cyberbullying, statements and or pictures taken out of context of our child, and the unwanted spotlight focused on our child. So in other words, Dwayne Wade is an abusive, evil monster. And none of this is new. In fact, the Dwayne Wade case is quite instructive. You know, it's symptomatic of something, which is, it raises a question, which is, why is it that celebrities are so prone to having trans kids? Have you noticed that? How do you explain the high concentration of trans kids, quote unquote, in Hollywood? Dwayne Wade, Charlize Theron, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jennifer Lopez, Busy Phillips, the list goes on. It's because they use their kids as status symbols. And there is no way around that conclusion. In fact, even if it happened to be true that a kid could be, quote, trans, and that their transgenderism should be affirmed, and both of those things are emphatically not true at all, but even if it was, it would still be totally indefensible to make your child's gender transition public. There's no benefit to your child in turning this into a public spectacle. If he's on a gender journey, as you say, and if you actually wanted to give him space to be who he is, as you claim, then you wouldn't be crowding the space with cameras and microphones. The only possible effect of the publicity is to set this new identity in place. Now that you've made him into a leader, right, into an LGBT icon, and you've got the endorsement deals rolling in, and there's a lot of money on the line. And not only that, but in Dwayne Wade's son's case, like, he's making all this money. Dwayne Wade doesn't have a job anymore. And so now I guess he's the breadwinner in the family. He's going to feel like he's not able to switch back or detransition or have a change of heart. And that, of course, is exactly why they do this. They are leading their children, it turns out. You know, I wish that Dwayne Wade was merely sitting back passively and following his child's lead. That would be bad parenting, but not as bad as what he's actually doing. Because what he's actually doing is actively leading his son into self-rejection, self-loathing, deeper and deeper confusion. He has taken his son by his hand and guided him straight over the cliff and profited from it the whole way down. It is, again, pure evil. He should be shamed for it and disgraced for it, ostracized from society, arrested, because this is abuse. But instead, all he hears is applause.